Hello and welcome to Podcast Essentials. I'm John Moore and I'm joined today by my co-host, Mr. Rich Bowden. You're there, Rich.
Hello, John. I am indeed, yes.
Excellent. Today we're covering the wonderfully tricky subject of outside recording. And as you can see from the background here, I'm in a vehicle because it's starting to rain for the first time in about 40 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're adapting, improvising and overcoming, which is the plan, of course. There's not a lot to outside recording once you've got inside recording mastered. So I'll go through the thoughts. I've got a blog post up on mrjohnmoore.com. If you click the blog menu tab, you'll find it there. So basically, it's the same sort of stuff as when we're indoors, except controlling the atmosphere and the environment is far more difficult. Now, I'm not sure how echoey I am here, Rich.
No, it's not too bad. Actually, this sounds quite good.
Cars are good. Also using the Zoom with the microphone just on this side is a big help as well. It's the same sort of stuff, but if you're going to try and set up a studio mic like the Rode you've got there outdoors, it gets a bit tricky. It's also important to have the wind suppressor on it. And to think about where you're standing and why you're doing the interview. Do you really need to be outdoors? Is this the only place you can grab someone? Or maybe you're doing a vox pop, so you have to be out on the street. But microphone use, handing it over to the person you're talking to, that sort of thing. Or you could use both sides of this because it's got separate recording tracks on both sides, if that's what you wanted to do. The old standby of the mobile phone works, provided there's not too much wind, if you had needed to grab a quick interview with someone you were having a chat with. But the wind is the big problem when you're outdoors because it just rips across the top of microphones and you get that sound of the rushing ocean in the background, and it's very difficult to deal with in post-production. The other thing to be aware of is if you're in a cafe perhaps doing an interview, and I know people that do this all the time, the trick. Any experiences with that, Rich?
I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Mr. Moore.
But what are there any steps you take to dampen noise or whatever while you're there?
Look, I've got advice. Never, ever, ever do an interview in a cafe, but I don't agree. I think that if you can reduce the noise, it's quite a good location. If you can find a quiet corner, it can be fantastic. People relax, they have coffee, they sit and talk. It's a place for talking. So I think if you can swing it, do it. Go for the live cafe sort of sound. But one thing I did find, John, is I had a microphone like yours, and I was talking to someone over the other side of the table, and so I had both sides live of the microphone. That sort of turned it into an omnidirectional microphone. So it picked up everything. So it would pick up, you've sort of set it to pick up everything in the cafe, and it will. They're good microphones. They're designed to do that. So whatever you do, try and get, say, one side of a microphone that you're using now, John, and sit next to the person. It's a little bit more awkward. Don't usually talk to people like that, but you'll find that it'll cut out a lot of the cafe noise. And I did use this one. I'll just show viewers this. I have shown them before, the Rode.
Yep.
Now that's only got one direction. And so I did set that up in a cafe. And although we were almost on a busy street, I hope I didn't change the settings there, but although we were on a busy street, it wasn't too bad. And I think if you're aiming at not too bad, listenable, then it's achievable. That's probably the lessons I've learned amongst others, John.
The thing I find, on the older Zooms, it's harder, but with this one, I can adjust the shape on either side that picks up sound. So that I can narrow it down, but you'd always get bleed across into the other track. So what I've
Yes.
done myself is to just use the one side and either pass it back and forth as we're speaking, or get everyone to sit facing it. And yeah, it's not an ideal interview situation, but sometimes at 90 degrees to each other, so that you then have the Zoom sitting between works. But it's just a matter of experimenting. And with the video Mike Me, the Rode little thing that plugs into the smartphone we showed last episode,
Yes.
that you have to turn that to the person while they're talking, because it's a shotgun mic, and so it forces you to do it. And it's also got a wonderful windsock on it, dead cat, spoffle, whatever you want to call it, that cuts out all the background noise. This is a bit of foam, and you can hear it coming on, coming off, and coming on, and it does a really good job too, which surprised me because I expected to see it all furry. But it's a matter of thinking about what you're doing. Now, if you're on the street doing a vox pop, just walking up to people saying, "What do you think about?" then you just got to hope that your gear's up to it. And sometimes you just have to dump a recording. Sometimes it's just not going to be up to scratch. And if you're aware of that in the back of your mind, you don't tend to then invest too much into it, in that I have no choice, I have to use this and it's going to sound horrible. And you spend hours in post-production trying to make it audible. When with some things, it's just never going to happen. And I find with the cafe ones I've listened to that you've done, Rich, it's not a problem as long as you tell people that you're in a cafe. There's a new podcast out I've been listening to. Each of them, there's only the 2 episodes. They go an hour each, but they're in coffee shops. And he didn't say anything. He just said, "This is who I'm interviewing, and this is my show," and away they went. And I thought, he's outside. Okay. Yeah. And then I adjust because I realise he's not sitting in a studio. It's a one-on-one, unedited, basically.
Exactly. It's what you're expecting, and if you're hearing an outside interview at a cafe and you're told that, or you just pick that up, then suddenly your brain sort of adjusts, and you know that you're not going to get top quality, but that's fine as long as you can hear what's going on. It's the same with there's a number of ABC shows here in Australia, John, as you know, that do Skype recordings, and they'll interview somebody from the other side of the world on Skype, and they'll mention it because just by mentioning the Skype, then they know that the quality is down, but it never interferes with the quality of the show. And obviously, the quality of the sound is slightly down, but it's not enough to make it a problem.
Yeah, look, if people know what's going on, and really, if it's audible, any sort of background fuzz, the brain is really good at filtering out anyway. It's particularly if it's consistent noise, like a hum in the background or something. But if you got the occasional, what's the word I'm after? Like you hear the clang of things that are not a routine, or what's the word?
Occasional sort of
that are not consistent. The mind won't filter out inconsistent. It needs to be consistent for the mind to work, because it was the inconsistent that would kill us in the prior to the Holocene, when we were wandering around as hunter-gatherers. It was the strange, and that's what we evolved to find. So that's why, I think I said last episode, or maybe a previous one, that when we moved to Sydney, we lived across the road from the train station, and I didn't sleep for the first week. But after that week, I never heard another train. So the mind's good at doing it. But that being said, don't go out of your way to have a consistent background hum, because that's just going to be annoying, particularly when you're editing, and it's not best practice. The point we're trying to make here, I think, is that there will be sometimes less than ideal situations, and live with it, but strive always for the best possible situation, which is what we try to do with our indoor recording as well. So I'm not sure if you heard any car doors slam there next to us just during that little ramble of mine, Rich.
No, actually, the sound's very good. You've got a nice dampened sort of sound coming through, so it's not too bad at all.
What surprises me, there's lots of hard surfaces, but there's no flat ones. I think that might be the problem, the key to the...
And you can see that it's the rounded sort of shape of the inside as well. That's probably making it that way. So one thing I think the listeners and the viewers would like to get a little bit more instruction on, and I would too, John, is if you are considering going out and doing a vox pop, and it is a windy day, should you just not bother at all? Just wait for a better day, or are there ways to mitigate that wind factor? Can you use your body in ways sort of turn towards the wind? Would that make a difference at all?
Yeah, of course it would. I think the key though is to have the windsock on your device. That video mic me with the big thing on it. I think I mentioned there was a video where he was recording on the beach and all you could hear was sound while he was talking. And then he dropped the sock on mid-sentence and suddenly all you could hear was his voice.
Yeah.
So if you set the gear up properly, the wind's not going to be a problem. If you're trying to do it with your phone sort of on the run, then perhaps shielding it with your body, standing close together so that the wind can't go through it. And remember, it's audio we're after, not video, so it doesn't matter what position you're standing in. So if you have to squat down behind a park bench or something that's solid in order to get the sound, well, people love doing that sort of thing anyway. It shows a bit of excitement, a little bit of difference. But yeah, like all these things, it's a matter of thinking before you do. And if you do that, you're okay. It's just part of the... It's not actually that different from being indoors. It's just that it feels it, and you've got less control. And learning to live with the less control, but attempting to get as much control as you can. It's that fine line. It's like the difference between audio quality and file size. It's a compromise, and you try and do the best you can.
Sure.
And if you can't, go.
Just going to ask you, okay, so if you were taking that mic that you've got, the H2N, out to do a live recording, how would you set the low cut filter? What would you look for first of all before you went out?
Okay, I wouldn't change any of the settings because I've got the thing set to my voice, so that's where my voice works best. I'd only have the microphone. Sorry, they cut out the sound. I'd only have the microphone on this side, and I'd pass it back and forth if we're in a standing situation or whatever. If we're sitting, I take the stick off and put the tripod on and place it between us where we're at a 30 to 45 degree angle, 45 to 90 degree angle between myself and the interviewee.
Yep.
And place the device midway between the two of us. There was an occasion when I was recording 4 of us, and it turned out I was too far to the side. So, and that was all going onto one track, so that was fine. So I just left the other 3 voices in there and re-recorded my questions and my statements as I was listening back to them, back into this, and then added those in. So you can do that afterwards if you need to. It's less than ideal because you can get a different sound background and whatnot because each room has a different silence, so to speak. But it's doable. You can faff about and fix things if you need to. And I think that particular episode came out really well with the 4 of us. And no one mentioned the fact that, you sounded like you were in a different room, because I have this set to the same settings all the time and I know how far away to have it from my mouth.
Was that the Christmas special, John?
That was indeed the Christmas special on the World Organic News podcast.
And he was the star of that. I keep telling you that.
So it turns out my settings for me also work really well for her. So maybe there's a generic setting there for podcasting. I'm sure there'll be another episode on, well, at least a blog post on the various settings on the Zoom. I suspect as a video it'd be a bit dull watching me flick through, but we'll see. But my battery is dying because, of course, I'm in a less than optimal position here.
All right.
So unless there's anything sort of pertinent or pressing, Rich, that you can think of.
No, thanks, John. That's been very instructive as usual. Just one thing that I thought you might want to mention is that you are still doing the classes on mrjohnmoore.com. Is that correct? People can go in there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, there's the complete course on podcasting to get you started. Everything you need and nothing you don't. Or you can sign up for the free checklist to get an idea of what's involved with pre-launch and getting the whole thing set up with Apple and Google and whatnot. And there's a short course there on GarageBand for podcasters, GarageBand editing for podcasters. It's hosted over at Udemy. And so that's relatively inexpensive to get you started. But other than that, next episode, next Friday, we'll be doing adding layers and sound effects and music to your podcast. Why you should, why you shouldn't, and copyright. Slight introduction to copyright. We'll do a whole episode on copyright because that's a hoot, and that'll be much later in the series.
I'm looking forward to that, John.
Yeah. Well, everyone gets a bit twitchy about copyright, and fair enough too.
Yeah.
But that's another day, as I say. So with that, we might pull this one to an end, and hopefully I'll be in a better space and be able to plug the laptop in and go a bit longer next time, which will be on Friday at 9:30 my time and 6:30 yours, I believe, Rich.
That's correct, John. Okay, mate, thank you very much again. Very good lesson today.
No worries, thanks. All righty, we'll just hit stop.